The layers created in the previous movies are now in After Effects, and this is the layer without the smoke. This is from a PNG. On top is the exact same layer, but this one is rendered as an EXR, and if you look at that, there's a slight difference in brightness. It looks a little bit washed out. With some effects, you can easily fix that or make it more the way you want it to. Because it's EXR, you have way more control over the image. I just changed the gamma a little to give it a little bit more punch. On top of that, we want to layer the smoke. So here is the smoke image as it came out of the render we set up in the previous movie, which looks just fine. And if we lay it on top of the other image, it hasn't got a proper alpha channel. The alpha channel is all blocked by the background elements. What we can do is turn the transfer mode to screen, layering it on top. That makes the entire image a little bit brighter, so we can play with the levels to make that better over the gamma, but it does work and gives you a nice smoke effect, so that's real quick and dirty. If we look at the total render, you see that a big difference is that in this render the smoke towards the background occludes more of the scene. So what we want to do is change the render of the smoke to have a proper alpha channel that has the density of the smoke in it. We could just use the luminance, but then this part where the little light is would become the most opaque, and that's not what we want. So in Maya, I changed the smoke shader a little. I put the outcolor into the transparency, the outcolor of the volume noise into the transparency. And then I made the transparency depth 0.5. That resulted in a render that gets me much better transparency on the smoke, if this is the alpha channel, and this is the RGB, so the RGB didn't change much, but the alpha channel radically changed. This does not work with the shader, the AI flat we put on the background. I also needed to give the background elements, while still black, no alpha. And that was done in this way. What I did in Maya to create a better alpha channel for the smoke is in the smoke render layer, the material override make black, which was an AI flat shader, I replaced that with an AI standard surface, which of course does include calculations. But if you turn off the weight on the base and the specular and everything else, so all the weights to 0, it does not slow you down at all because there's still no calculation. And to make it work, you have to go to the matte and enable the matte and turn the matte opacity to 0 and the color to black. That way the objects will not produce an alpha channel when they are rendered, so you can only get the alpha channel from the smoke that's rendered on top. This is the render that now comes out of that smoke render layer. This is the RGB channel, which basically didn't change much, but the alpha channel now looks like this instead of completely white from the background. So back in After Effects, this is the smoke layer that we had with the alpha channel that is completely white. And this is a new smoke channel with the alpha channel I just showed you, which has an alpha channel. If I turn everything up, and you can see that now actually the alpha channel represents the thickness of the smoke. So if we simply throw that over the no smoke image, you do get the occlusion in the back where there's more smoke. And this is actually the way it turns out by default, a bit too faint. we can, with an exposure and some level adjustment, especially a gamma change on the alpha, we can give it more punch. We can play with how strong it should be. We can play with how bright it should be. And anything else we care to touch. So because it's all EXRs, we have a full range to work with, and with the adjusted alpha channel on the smoke, we can get the exact result we want. And if you compare it to the original image, it's actually maybe even nicer.